Hi guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to my life. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what it's like teaching English in China. Now do keep in mind that every teacher's experience in China is going to be different, but hopefully you'll be able to glean some useful information from my own experiences, and I'll try to give you guys some suggestions and tips in case you're wondering, is this the right thing for me? Okay, so let's go ahead and start off at the first school that I taught at, which was Dahongying University. Now, why would I want to teach at university? If you saw my previous video on how and why I moved over to China, you'll know that teaching English at a university gives you a flexible schedule with very low teaching hours and lots of free time. So that's why I taught at a university. I wanted to have a nice life in China. I didn't want to be constantly writing lesson plans or correcting papers. I wanted to enjoy my teaching experience, but have enough time to travel around China and enjoy the day-to-day cultural activities. So, I signed a contract with Dahongying University while I was living in America. They gave me free airfare, so I flew on over to China. They picked me up from the airport, and as they drove me to the university, my first thoughts were, holy crap, holy shit. What did I get myself into? Because as we're driving from the airport to the school, we're going through these industrial areas, and if you've seen industrial areas, I'm sure, in your hometown, but an industrial area in China is a lot more impactful, right? There's lots of industry going, there's lots of pollution, there's lots of smog. So as I'm driving through this sort of just this ugly is the word, I'm sorry, this ugly industrial area, I'm starting to regret my decision. Why did I come to teach English in China? And the people who picked me up weren't even that friendly. So I was already kind of second guessing myself. Then we pull into the university, and I thought, well, okay, it looks pretty good. Not so bad. And then they show me to my apartment, and there's like a layer of dust, maybe 2 fingers thick, on top of every single piece of the furniture. And there's no water, no working water. The place is just a mess. And they're like, okay, here you go. You're good. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how I'm going to start my new year. And I'm going to live in this apartment that is a wreck in this university that is surrounded by this industrial area. I'm already kind of wondering, did I make the right decision or not? You know, first impressions are kind of important. But in any case, I ended up calling Fifi Yang, the foreign affairs officer, the person who was in charge of setting me up. And I just explained that this apartment it's kind of crap. So she was, no problem, you know, we've got another apartment. And they showed me to the other apartment and it was much better. And I wondered, why didn't they show me to that apartment in the first place? But in any case, I was getting set up. I had a nice spacious apartment with several different rooms and a full kitchen and a little balcony area. Now, it wasn't really a open balcony. It was kind of a enclosed balcony with a little desk where I would hang up my clothes. And outside of that was, looking out the window, I could see a farm field where, not coincidentally, it's something that they do in farms across China, probably farms everywhere, but this was my first time coming from the city of Los Angeles, living near a farm where they're burning grass. Now, I just mentioned that it's surrounded by an industrial area. That's true. There is industry all around it, but there's also farms as well. One thing about China is that the industry and the farms are never far apart. You find people tilling fields everywhere. I'm fairly pleased with my new apartment, and I'm starting to unpack my thoughts in my mind as well as my clothing. And I'm starting to realize, okay, this is where I'm going to live for this next year. And I'm excited. I'm excited that I'm going to teach classes in China, that I'm going to get my schedule in the next day when I got to meet the other teachers. And they handed me my books and we had a meeting and got to meet each other. And it was a small faculty of foreign teachers. There was I don't know how to describe her. She was my arch nemesis. She was an Australian woman from Tasmania. She had been working at Dahongyin for 6 years. She was the boss, and she wanted you to know that she was the boss. And she had her idea of how to teach English, and she wanted you to know and implement that idea. And I consider myself a fairly easygoing guy, but I really don't like authority. So I ended up bumping heads with Helen a lot. But there were other teachers as well. There was Big John, another Australian teacher. He was kind of cool. We had some nice evenings out drinking and eating and having fun, and he was a really nice guy. And then another teacher who was from Mexico, and she taught the Spanish program. And sorry guys, I just got a little emotional because actually both John and the Mexican teacher I'm talking about, they actually both passed away shortly after I moved to China. So yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I did not mean to talk about teachers passing away. Neither one of them passed away at school, and neither one of them passed away while teaching classes. And so let's get back to the topic of what it's like teaching English at a university in China. So I got my schedule and I had my books, and I got so excited about my first day of classes. Helen wanted to introduce me, that Tasmanian devil. So she met up with me right before class, and she walked me into my class. And I didn't know really what to expect. I knew it was going to be different than a university classroom in America, but how different? Would there be a whiteboard or a chalkboard? Who were these students? What were their ambitions? So I had all of these ideas and all of these expectations, but overall it was a big question mark. And so I walk into that classroom with Helen. It was a tourism English class, students who specifically want to study English to help them in their career in the tourism industry. And I walk in, and there's 41 girls and 3 boys. And Helen introduces me. Hi, this is your teacher, Ryan, from California. And the girls just start clapping. And that, they really did. They just started clapping just for me being me. So who wouldn't like that feeling, right? It was, I mean, I didn't expect that, right? I didn't expect that. But, you know, they were treating me like I was some type of star. I was just their teacher. And so that first day was just so powerful, so powerful. I mean, these students were so happy to see me, and I was so happy to meet them. And we were going to spend the next year together, actually a semester together. So that was a nice way to start the day. And immediately went into introductions. I got to introduce who I was, and I just see all of their smiles just beaming from around the classroom. And then I wanted to meet them. I wanted to know who these kids were. They're all, 18-year-old Chinese students from the countryside. They've never met a foreigner before, never face-to-face and actually looked them in the eyes and had a conversation. So they're so wide-eyed. And I've never talked to my Chinese university class, so I'm pretty wide-eyed too. And it's just smiles and grins on both sides, and just the energy is palpable. And so I'm meeting these students. I have them stand up, and some of them are shy, and some of them are brave. And some of them, they really want to know who I am. They want to ask some personal questions. And just about every classroom of students who I went through this similar routine with, just about every classroom, I got the question, are you married? Do you have a girlfriend? And at the time I didn't. And, if I answered no, they would just start giggling. And, one student, she was known to be a bit out there. People called her crazy. And she just yelled, "I love you!" Just really looking at me with so much intensity. "I love you!" And it was just, it was scary. No, it wasn't scary. It was surprising, and who doesn't like a good surprise on the first day of class? So that brings up a very important tip for anyone who's considering teaching English in China. If you teach English in China, you're very likely going to come into contact with a lot of students who are very excited to meet you. They perhaps have never had a conversation, have never looked a foreigner in the eyes, and they really, really want to know about you. So if you're someone who's very shy and private, You might take that chance as an opportunity to open up. However, it can overwhelm you, especially the first part of the semester. Eventually, the novelty of you being on campus, the novelty of you being in their life will wear off and you won't have all of that attention. But especially in the initial stages, you're going to have students who are going to be taking your photo in class when you're not looking. They're going to be gossiping about you. If they're going to try to find your phone number, like for example, I don't know how they got my phone number, but anyways, my phone number went around the school and I was getting text messages from random people, random numbers throughout the day, almost every day. If it was a cold day, I would get multiple messages. Today's a cold day. Wear lots of clothes. By a stranger that I didn't know just because they wanted to connect with me. And that's incredible. That's incredible. It's so unrealistic in your or my day-to-day life in our home country. We're not used to that type of interaction with people who are strangers and people who are on the tangential or the who are a bit not so close to us. But you get these people these students who are just so eager to learn about you, to know about you, and to find out about your country, and to find out, do you like their country? Do you like their food? I would constantly be asked, sometimes through text messages from strangers, sometimes by strangers that I met on the street, just simple questions. Do you like Chinese food? Do you like our country? And, you just tell them yes. And I did like Chinese food. I did like their country, and I like them. And so it's just beautiful, beautiful, an exchange of energy. But keep in mind that you are going to have a lot of attention on you, regardless of who you are, just simply for being different, simply for being novel. You're going to have people stare at you. People are going to take your photos. Several times in the beginning, when I first moved to Dahongying, I would walk through the corridor and there would be a balcony or a bridge filled with students, and they would see me walking past. I would look up, and as soon as I looked up, they would just go as if I had shot them or something like that. They were just so. It's like when you play peekaboo with kids, or your animals all amped up. It's just a weird energy that you're not used to if you're just a normal Joe Blow. So if you've ever wanted to know what it would be like to have a lot of attention, be an English teacher in China and choose a university outside of Beijing, Shanghai, and the big cities, and you'll know what I'm talking about. In any case, the whole semester, in fact, that entire year at teaching at Dahongying was in a similar way that the students were happy to have me as a teacher. I was happy to have them. There was lots of an exchange of information. I tried my best to teach them as much English as possible in the English that would be useful to them. But some of the comments that I got at the end of the school year, at the end of the semester, that really helped me realize just exactly what I was doing there. I wasn't just teaching English. In fact, so much of it is you're an ambassador and a steward of your country, and you give them an opinion based on their own subjective experience with an American, I'm American, or with whatever country you might come from. You give them a way to build their worldview, right? Because we read stuff in the newspaper, we watch the news, we read things on the internet, and we form an opinion about a certain type of people or a certain culture. But it's not until you meet people and look them in the eyes and exchange the information that you have in your heart and in their heart, and you exchange that, do you really understand what people are like. So I got to meet Chinese people and find out that they're very friendly, they're very interested, and they're very pure. I use that term in that sense. They're very pure. Of course, humans are humans. But one of the things about Chinese university students is you look at them and you talk to them, and they're more innocent than middle school students in America. They're more innocent than a lot of 6th and 5th graders. They're not interested in boyfriends, especially as freshmen. And once they get into become sophomores and juniors, they start to open up, and then they really open up after university, as we all do. But generally, they go into the university experience for friendship, for fun. They like to sing. My students would often invite me to go sing karaoke, and they would just, it was so beautiful. You don't even realize what we lack in the West when you look in the eyes of a lot of people, and they just don't have that, their heart's not open enough to just sing a song while looking you in the eyes, where a lot of my Chinese students did that. They would look me in the eyes and sing me this beautiful, beautiful song. A Chinese song or a Britney Spears song. They're really into pop music. They really like boy bands and girl bands. And so if you ever go to karaoke with your Chinese students, do keep in mind that you're going to hear a lot of Britney Spears, a lot of NSYNC, a lot of, I don't know, all sorts of these boys bands I'm not even familiar with, as well as a lot of slow Chinese love songs. Chinese love songs. Who doesn't love love songs? But back to the purity and innocent standpoint, their songs don't have cuss words. Their songs aren't explicitly sexual. In some ways, it just seemed like a blast from the past, the morality that I encountered amongst young people. It was very touching, very extremely touching, and beautiful. In any case, I did my best to be their English teacher, and a lot of them said that I helped them to open up. I helped them to express themselves in ways that they were never able to do before. And I took that as an even greater compliment than teaching them grammar and vocabulary, which I did as well. But it was a beautiful experience teaching at Dahoying. There were some hard things, like I said. I wasn't used to getting that much attention. Now, I had worked as a substitute teacher. I was a popular substitute teacher in America, so I did get a lot of attention from students, but this was on another level. I started becoming almost not antisocial, but I tried to avoid interacting with people. Probably not the best way to handle it. I try to do that. Sometimes I just wanted to go to the supermarket and get some milk without taking any photos or without being badgered for my phone number. So I'd put on sunglasses and a hoodie, like you see the stars in the paparazzi magazines and tabloids. So it was a weird experience, very weird experience, but a beautiful experience and a wonderful time because I had a lot of free time to not only teach classes, but to leave campus. You get a month and a half to 2 months of vacation in the summer, so you can travel around the country of China. China is a beautiful country to travel to. There's lots of different places. It's a massive country, as you obviously probably know, with varying landscapes. You can go to places where they have these ice winter festivals with these elaborate ice castles and sculptures. You can go to tropical places in China where they have elephants. You can go to the Himalayas and you can hike Everest. China's a huge country with so many options. And that's one of the reasons, as a traveler, teaching at a university in a big country that was relatively inexpensive, that was very friendly and very safe. China is a safe country in terms of physical violence. There's not a lot of physical violence that goes on in China. However, there is a lot of theft, a lot of petty theft. So one thing you do have to keep in mind is when you're in China, you always want to guard your pockets, make sure that no pickpockets slip their hands in, because that would happen all the time. Nearly every time I would show up to class, one of my students had their cell phone pickpocketed. Generally what happened when you're in crowds, even one time I caught a pickpocket. I caught a pickpocket stealing a college girl's phone out of her backpack, and I just yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" And this kind of scruffy looking middle-aged Chinese guy just kind of looked at me. And then her friend saw that, grabbed the phone out of his hand. They thanked me, and so you deal with petty thievery, but you don't deal with violence. So it's a nice country to travel to. Universities are very safe. Now, if you're someone who likes attention, then this might be the perfect position for you. And there are perks as well. You will be invited to dinners by the faculty, by the other teachers. You will be invited by the students to activities. And, you know, one thing about Chinese culture, and this is another important tip for everyone to realize, whether you're going there to teach or you're going there for business or you're going there for travel, is that oftentimes you will be invited to something. Now, when Chinese people invite you to something, the expectation is that the invitee is a guest. That means that if you're invited, you don't pay for anything. They will pick you up. They will handle all of the arrangements. If they invite you to their hometown to meet their family, they're not only gonna drive you around like a chauffeur, they're gonna put you up in a hotel or let you stay at their house. You cannot reimburse them for any of the money. So you really get a red carpet treatment teaching in China, a red carpet treatment just living in China. And I can't say enough about the hospitality. Every country I travel to, I try to learn lessons. I try to learn what are the positive points of their culture, what are the parts of their culture that I would like to incorporate into my own life. And in terms of Chinese culture, the thing that I was touched by was their generosity and the way that they looked at their friends. I had very, very close friends in China, these Chinese people who were just so kind to me and so trusting of me. And in turn, I trusted them. And we built these incredible friendships. And they were so generous. And by being generous to me, it made me want to be more generous. So I became more generous. So I find that, you know, it's a beautiful experience. But if you're used to going Dutch and you're used to splitting the bill and getting out your calculator, don't go to a dinner with your Chinese friend, because they will be offended. They will pay for the bill. And I mean, the only time that's different is if girls and boys all go to a dinner together, the boys always pay. You could say that's sexist. You could say that's old school, but that's the way it is. And that's China. Hey, I'm not there to change their culture. I'm there to learn, appreciate, and incorporate. So if you like that type of attention, if you like constantly being asked questions and constantly being inquired about into your personal life, and you like going to dinners and not paying for dinners, of course you pay for dinners when you do the inviting. But if you like that, if you really want to make a lot of friends, then teaching English in China is incredible. I'd go out and never had a hard time finding a tennis partner. I'd play tennis with the tennis players from the tennis team. If I wanted to play basketball, I was welcome to just about any game. In China, and especially in the universities, they do lots of performances throughout the year. So they'll do musical performances, theatrical performances, kung fu performances. They'll do award ceremonies. They'll do story times. They always find a reason to gather all of the students in a big auditorium and do a big show. And oftentimes, you know, when you're that foreign teacher, you'll get asked to get on stage. And so sometimes I had to get on stage and do things. So.
All right. Well, tonight they asked me to sing a song. Would you like to hear me sing a song? I'm going to sing nothing. Nothing, no.
Like I said, if you are a shy guy and you don't want to open yourself up, don't do it. All right. So that's what it's like teaching English at a university. Lots and lots of fun. Lots of free time. Now, I didn't just teach at a university. I also taught at a training school. So the reason I moved from the university to the training school was, one, it's different. I want to learn a new experience. But two, university teaching is generally located outside of the center of the city. Most universities are located at the peripherals of cities, so usually about 30 minutes to an hour away. So anytime you want to go to downtown to go to a Starbucks or go to a supermarket to get Western food or a KFC to get that little taste from home, that comfort food, you got to take a long bus or a taxi ride. And sometimes it's hard to find taxis around the universities because it's so far out away from the center of the city. So I wanted to find out what it would be like teaching in the center of the city. So I finished my contract with Da Hongying. I did a month of holiday back home, reconnecting with family, enjoying California's sunshine, running in the hills. And then I went back to China, but this time I worked for a school called Meiya, and they were an adult training school right in the center of Ningbo near Tianyi Square. And at that school, they taught adults. Now, most of those adults had jobs in international trade or companies, so they were there for a purpose. They weren't like my sort of curious, aimless university students. They were more focused. They wanted specifically to learn English to improve their career. So, which is great because that means the students are actually come to class motivated to learn. And like the students at the university, they will also be very interested in your personal life and ask you questions, but they'll be a bit more sophisticated. Most of these students are in their 20s, their 30s, some in their 40s, and they've been around the block. Some of them have traveled to other countries. They've had other English teachers. So they're a different breed, and it's wonderful. The classrooms are very small, so you get to really get to know these students a lot more. But the difference between teaching at a university and a training school is that the training school is set up much, much, much more like a business than a university. They all want to make money, but the training school is more of a corporation that is cutthroat about it. So they're going to really be watching your performance. They're going to be making sure the students are happy. They're going to try to show you off as much as possible. So a lot of times management, for example, management wanted to use me as their poster boy. So they would film me. They would take photos of me. They would put me on flyers and pass out my photo in the city square. They would put me up on the electronic billboards as people are driving by to see me. And I did that just kind of pro bono. I didn't work as a model before that. And so I was like, hey, why not? You want to take photos of me? That sounds cool. Not those kind of photos, guys. But I thought it was kind of an interesting thing. And you're expected to work. Of course you work wherever you are, but the university, you're a lot more autonomous. You have a lot more freedom. At the training schools, a lot of times they'll have a set curriculum and they really want you to follow it. A lot more management. So to be honest, I way prefer teaching at the university. For the overall experience of teaching, I preferred it. But the training school was just different, and it pays a lot more money. It paid, I think, about triple the salary I was getting at the university. It did not include a free apartment, but I was able to get my own apartment, choose one, which I chose an awesome apartment right located at like the most happening district in town, up on the 16th floor, beautiful view of the city. And it was relatively cheap. Housing prices in China, as you can imagine, are much, much cheaper. This was 2009, or 2010, 2009, so I don't even want to comment on the price, but I was paying very little, around $400 a month, and I had a pimp-ass apartment in the center of the city. And the salary I got, I didn't mention that. The salary I got at Da Hongying was very low. It was about 5,000 renminbi per month, which is less than $1,000 per month. But I did it not for the money. I did it for the life. I did it for the experience. It included airfare. It included money for vacation. It included travel stipends. So there's all these other little bonuses that you got throughout it. And I was still able to save. But teaching at the training center, I earned somewhere maybe around $2,000, a little more than $2,000 US a month, which is still not a lot of money. But when you're living in a place like China, things are very cheap. I would get my hair cut, and it would pay maybe $1.50. Oh, wow. This is a Chinese haircut.
Look at that thing.
This is a Chinese mohawk. I think I'll be able...
You need to wet that thing down, my friend.
Yeah, fix this.
You need to remold that. I now have cancer.
and they don't even want to tip. Dinners, lunches, everything's super cheap. You can get a really nice bowl of noodles with fresh vegetables on it for less than $1 if you know where to go. Now, teaching at the training center, you get a wide variety of students. They're not just college freshmen. They're not just college sophomores. Some of them are there because their family sent them. So they're actually not motivated. Their family sent them there. Theirs are usually the younger ones, just out of college, or perhaps they're still in college. Sometimes you get high school students. But you also get very sophisticated students. Some students actually are not even there for English. They're looking to make friends with a foreigner. Because how do I know that? Well, you ask them, why are you here? And a lot of times they'll tell you, I want to make friends with a foreigner. Some of them are looking to find a foreign boyfriend or a foreign husband. So if you're single, and even if you're not single, if you're teaching English at the training center, you got to watch out. Sometimes these women will come in and they'll be aiming for you. So and maybe that's your thing. Maybe that's why you're there. I don't know. But in any case, it's an interesting experience. They do lots of activities. You don't get as much vacation time at the training schools than you do in the universities. So that's something you have to realize. There's a lot less days off. There's a lot more work expected. And whereas in the universities, I might work 8:30 in the morning to 11:30 in the morning, 3 hours a day. In the training schools, you're expected to pull 8-hour shifts. And they're not going to be happy if you're taking your break over at Starbucks. But like I said before, everyone's experience is going to be different, and not all training schools are the same. Now, beyond training schools, I also did other English teaching. I did private English teaching. So private English teaching is pretty cool, is that you're building your own business and you're teaching students in your own free time outside of your regular working hours. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that at your house. You can do it at their house. And where I did it, I chose Starbucks because Starbucks is an atmosphere that I enjoy. It's relatively quiet enough that you can actually have a nice conversation with someone. So I would meet students at Starbucks, and we'd have a coffee together and we'd talk for about an hour or 2 hours if that was a lesson, and then they give me the money. Now, I didn't do so much private teaching in China, so that's all I'm going to say about that. I did do a lot more private teaching in Japan, so when I do my video about teaching in Japan, I'll give you a lot of information about private English teaching. What other kinds of English teaching did I do in China? Oh, I taught at an elementary school called Xingfu Yuan. And one of my friends at the training center had connected me. Oh, so that's another thing to know about Chinese culture, is that just like in American culture or European culture or cultures all around the world, networking is very important. The Chinese really, really take advantage of that. And the Chinese are so much less bothered by inhibition. So they'll quickly just connect you with their friends. They're not going to waste time. They're going to try to help you, and in the hope that you'll probably help them in the future. So, for example, if you're interested in teaching private English classes, then they're going to put the word out, and before long, you're going to have students. If you're interested in modeling, then they're going to tell all their photographer friends that you're a model, and they're going to hook you up with modeling jobs. So you put it out there. That goes beyond just China, but you put it out there and quickly it comes back to you. So my coworker at the training school had told one of his friends who taught in the elementary school that I was a good teacher, and hey, would you like Ryan to come and teach some classes? And then this school, Xingfu Yuan, was having this program that they were starting where they were going to bring in this English teacher to teach classes once a month. So I'd come in actually 2 days a month to teach 2 different classes, and they paid really good money. I forgot exactly how much, but it was about $100 an hour, 100 US an hour to teach these elementary kids. So it was incredibly lucrative. It was very part-time, only, like I said, 2 days a month. But I would come in and I would have just like my university class, I'd have a huge classroom filled with kids, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and they'd be wide-eyed and they'd be interested in me. Of course, they didn't have enough English to actually be able to talk to me. And then I was able to teach them whatever I wanted to do. And the first day I taught a lesson all of the teachers, all in the English department came to watch. The principal came to watch. They took photos. I ended up in their the school district webpage. And I made such a splash that they brought me in to do a demo lesson of how we teach in the Western education system, which is kind of ridiculous because I never trained to be a teacher. I just kind of use my God-given talents and go off of my mind, whatever comes to me, and try to teach the best way I can. I was never actually trained as a teacher, which some people think you should. I think if you got the gift, don't let it stop you from using that gift. And that's what I did. So anyways, I taught at this elementary school for a while, and that was also a very interesting experience. Elementary schools are like elementary schools. You know, kids are kids. They're filled with this awesome energy, this rambunctiousness. They're great at playing games. But one difference between Chinese schools and American schools is in American schools, if you get out of line or you push someone in the playground or you punch someone, teachers are on you. They don't want you yelling. They don't want you running. Whereas in Chinese schools, it's a bit more like it probably was back in the day. Kids are running around roughhousing. They're wrestling around. And the Chinese teachers will say, hey, that's what kids do. I kind of like that idea. In any case, I also, beyond teaching at university, as well as training schools, as well as elementary schools, as well as private teaching, I have one other type of teaching that I'll tell you guys about. I also taught at a corporation. Now, similarly, the word got out that I was this teacher that was reliable. So if you're a reliable teacher, word will get out. More jobs will flow to you. And this company contacted me called Deli, D-E-L-I, Deli in Chinese. And they're a huge stationery company. In fact, they're one of the largest manufacturers of stationery goods in the world. And a lot of companies like Staples, which is a stationery store in America, a lot of stores that sell stationery supplies in America will actually buy from Deli, but then put their own logo on Deli. So anyways, I taught at this company and I taught their sales department. So I had a classroom filled with sales professionals who are very sharp. They spoke very good English because they were in the international department. So they had to use their English to talk. And so I taught business English, and I had never taught business English before. So all of these experiences that I'm talking about, they are first times for me. I'm just kind of making it up as I go, finding whatever advice I could find online and just throwing myself at it and seeing what happens. And it turned out to be a really cool class. So much, in fact, that the head managers ended up hiring me as their private speech instructors, so I would help them create dynamic PowerPoints and give them my impression as a Westerner, as a foreigner, on how it sounds and how it looks. And so, those are my teaching experiences in China. I taught at a university first for a year, then I taught for a year in an adult training school, then I taught elementary school as well, part-time, as well as private English teaching. I also taught at a company. And I also went back to China after a 1-year break and taught a bit more as I got my master's degree at a university, a British university, Nottingham University, that's located there, but that's a whole nother story. Teaching English in China is a great experience. It's a powerful experience. So if you are looking for a powerful, life-changing experience, then I really recommend it. But keep in mind the cultural aspects that I talked about. They do things differently. They do things very differently in China than they do things anywhere else. So you have to be able to go with that flow and understand that you're not gonna change them, and you need to keep certain things into consideration because it's just a different country. There are different people, and there's different rules. But it's a beautiful country to teach English in. I loved it. I highly recommend it. I've often thought about going back to do it because it's just so nice. It's so nice. And then one last tip. One of my friends, Matt, some of you guys might know Matt. He's really popular on YouTube. He's doing this huge gyro trip around the world where he's riding a tricycle, my idea, going around the world. And one of the first times that we actually hung out was I met him at a party, and I invited him to come talk to my classes at an English corner that we were having on campus. And I brought him over, and he had been living in China for several months doing business. And he had such a nice time at the university. He told me, Ryan, this is the best day I've had in China. And he meant it. And I said, Matt, well, why don't you teach English here at this university? And he said, oh, I don't want to be a teacher. Some people look down on teaching English. They think that doing business is better. And I'm not saying that Matt was arrogant, although he was a little bit. There's the advantage that even if you want to do some other thing like modeling or doing business on the side, you'll have a lot of free time if you teach at a university. And one thing that's very important for business, as I understand it, is connections and trust. You really want to be able to trust your business partners. And I can't tell you how many of my students asked me, Ryan, let's do business together. Ryan, let's do business together. And we already had that trust established because I was their teacher. And you cut through a lot of those getting to know each other phase. Can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? When you have class together on a weekly basis. So if I was a businessman, I could have done a lot of business on the side. However, that's just not me. So even if you're not looking to teach English in China, I still recommend it as an awesome experience. Even non-teachers will have their heart melted. All right, guys, that's it for teaching English in China. In my next episode, I'll talk about another aspect in China. Eventually, I'll work my way to Japan, and I've got some big surprises for you guys. And if you have any questions, please ask it in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and click like or subscribe. And if not, that's cool too. I hope that you get some benefit from it. And anyways, enjoy your day, guys. 再见.